What have you thought about your defense's performance over the last few games since we last talked with you on the bye week? Just overall thoughts on the level of play.
Yeah, I thought, for 3 quarters in this last game, which is the majority of snaps that the older guys played, the ones and the twos, I thought it was, maybe the most dominating performance we've had since we've been here. In a big time game, I thought I thought it started up front. I thought our D-line was physical. I think we challenged our kids to be the tougher team. So we talked about all week, and I thought our guys without a doubt did that. And when you make a team one-dimensional like that up front, and then it allows us to be able to cut it loose and affect the quarterback. And although the total number of sacks wasn't as high, if you watch that game, because we took a penalty here or there, or maybe there was a call here or there that didn't go our way where one got called back, but we affected the quarterback every single time he dropped back, and I thought that was huge. I thought our backers played really well, Ahmad and Colby in particular. And then I thought on the back end, for the most part, we tackled at a really, really high level. I thought the space tackles that our guys made were really important from the jump in that game. And so, and then I thought we covered well. I thought, on the back end, we limited explosive plays for 3 quarters. So I thought, when you look at the last game, thought our guys really came out, accepted the challenge and played really well. In the Duke game, I didn't think it was our best called game. Number one, I thought there were some situations that we could have put our kids in a lot better situation, and so I put a lot of that on me. What I was really proud of in the Duke game was, how we responded throughout the course of the game. Whether it was Smoke losing a one-on-one to then win a one-on-one on the next play to win us the game, or our guys' resiliency to, have a mentality of, hey, we gotta find a way to block this kick. We gotta find a way to, get this ball back. Those 3 possessions back to back right there in the fourth quarter, I thought showed, a lot of the character of this team. So, we got a long way to go, and understanding that it's still a process. You're never going to be perfect, but our desire to pursue perfection, and the guys' desire to be great and to come and to work and put the work in, I think has been really good. So, I'm pleased with where we're at right now. Obviously, getting healthy, into this bye week, letting them get refreshed a little bit, both mentally and physically, I think is important. Because you got to remember our season started a week before almost everybody else in the country. So, but then we got a big challenge next week. We know, the athletic ability that Castellanos has at quarterback. We saw it firsthand, and so, our guys getting ready for that opportunity and understanding that you're only as good as your last performance and your next performance. So we got to come ready to work as we finish off the remainder of this week into next week.
Is there an area on the defense since week 0, week 1 that you've been most impressed or proud of their growth?
I think every position group's really come a long ways. I mean, you start up front, well, there's a lot of new guys in that room, and so I think you look at the growth and the confidence to go out and execute calls at a high level and be able to maybe put a larger volume of defense in for those guys, because some of those guys, it is a new system, versus, when you look at like our linebackers, for example, the 3 guys played the majority of snaps last year. I think on the back end, overall, I think just the way we've tackled and, I think that's improved and we played a really clean game 2 of the last 3 weeks, I felt like, as far as, limited explosive plays. So, but I think all the position groups overall have, improved over the course of the season, which is what you want to see as a coach, is make sure that you're not taking steps back, but you're moving forward in a positive direction.
To your point about the defensive front, has that exceeded expectations since Nevada, or did you feel like if we hit benchmark here, we can get to this point from what you're seeing right now?
Well, I don't think that Nevada wasn't a good litmus test as far as what they did on offense going into a running quarterback, a new coordinator that hadn't called plays in 4 years. Like, that was a challenge for us as a staff. It really was. to get ready for, and you're trying to in-game adjust. And they did a great job of, really not dropping back a whole lot. So we didn't walk out of that game. I didn't walk out of that game thinking, man, I don't think we can be elite, on defense, or we're not as good up front, maybe because we didn't have the wow stats or the production. You just, you tipped your hat to them and how the game kind of unfolded. And, once again, though, when we did walk out of that game, what I was pleased with was how our guys responded all the way through the course of the game, which I thought, tells you a lot, as far as their resiliency and some of those things. So, I think, have we steadily, produced from a maybe TFL and SAC level as the year's gone on, for sure. But I think, you got to do what's best to defend each team you play, right? And every offense is going to be a little bit different, whether the quarterback can run, whether he can't, whether, so like there's a lot of variables in that you can't just say, well, it was because of this matchup or that matchup, right? Like you got to be able to win first down to get them into second long. You got to be able to. So, I think our guys have grown throughout the course of the year, and I think we were really confident that we were had a chance to be really good up front coming out of fall camp, because we'd seen it against our O-line, and I think they've continued to improve week to week throughout the course of the year.
What is the addition of Jafar done for the defense, and just having someone that can make a play like that at the end of that Duke game?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing in his position group, he's an older veteran guy. I think he's been a really good leader in that room. And then I think, from a playing time standpoint, you've got him and Isaiah, basically playing half and half the game. And, if we didn't have that, I mean, at every position, if you look on the D-line, we're almost splitting reps with those guys. It's really hard for a guy, you saw Elijah in the Duke game, I think played 58 snaps, and he ended up, having, back spasms and stuff at the end of the game. Like, it's different for a corner to play, not to say it's not hard, but it's different for a corner to play 60 snaps in a game than it is for a 300-pound guy, a 270-pound guy that's got a 350-pound guy pushing and leaning on him. And so I think the ability for us to be able to stay fresh, rotate guys, have quality depth. I mean, Isaiah started games this year, Farai started games this year. Like when you look at Cam and Elijah and Farai and Isaiah, like that's 4 really good players that are all playing at a high level right now. And so it creates competition. It creates a situation where there's not any drop off from either of those 2 guys being in there. And that's really important up front to have that. Even when we played Florida State, for example, I thought Coach did a great job on offense. They had a really good D-line. They were very talented, but their depth with their 2s wasn't as good. So with our 1s in the game, I thought he did a great job of tempo and getting those big guys to go east and west. So then they got tired, and then when their 2s rolled in the game, we ran the ball right at them. And I think that's good coaching on our offensive staff's part. When we roll our 2s in, like they're not 2s. They're the next guys that are rolling into the game. That might be Jared and Uno one drive, and the next drive it might be Tank and Mike or who. But the drop off has not been, noticeable. And so I think that's created for, 1, good chemistry, but 2, obviously us, to be able to play, the course of the game at a high level.
The bye week gives you maybe time that you don't otherwise have to self-scout and do some of that. And coaches talked about how you guys as a staff sit down and look at needs for the future, looking at ahead. What's that like at this point of the season? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of guys that are out of eligibility. Are you starting to dive in? What's kind of your approach there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there'll be, as you look at, the experience that we're losing, and where do we have guys that we feel like, are ready to play for sure in our program that are coming up and being developed, versus where do we need to create depth right now and balancing that. We've got a really strong high school class coming in. Now, as a coach, it's a little bit scary to be counting on, 17, 18-year-old guys, but some of those guys that, we believe can contribute right away. And so, I think you're balancing all that, and then you're weighing with, figuring out what's out there. I think at this point of the year, one of the things I think we've done a really good job as a staff is making sure that guys aren't just good football players when they come in here, but also good fits. And I think that's really important when you talk about building a culture and continuing to establish on that year to year. It's making sure that we got the right kids coming into our program, and so doing all the research on that this week is big as we start to that time of the year starts to unfold, and then obviously looking to have our high school kids coming in. A lot of those guys will be here in January as well. But yeah, that's a big part of this last bye week in particular, just because the time of year it is and the season we're getting to.
When you go back to last year, excuse me, the postseason opportunity, was kind of out of you guys' hands.
Mm-hmm.
This year, it's right in front of y'all. The path is, if you win out, you can make the CFP. Is that something you guys talk about? Not necessarily the prospect of going, but just that the team has played themselves into a point where.
No, I mean, we talk about the process and the standard, and the standard and the process isn't going to change. We'll let you guys talk about that. We want our guys focused on what's right in front of us, which is a team that beat us last year in the postseason. And so I think we're very aware that we're about to play a really good football team here in a week, and staying grounded and focused on what's most important, because you don't get to the end goal if you focus on looking at the end goal. You focus on what's right in front of you, taking one step at a time. And I thought our guys last year did a good job of that, and I think thus far this season we've tried to stay focused on that, because none of that stuff really matters until the season's over, and we've got to keep playing our level of football and our brand, and holding them to our standard on how we practice. And I thought last week, going back to that, I didn't think we had great practices in the Duke week. Maybe some of that distraction affected them, I don't know, but we really called them out and challenged them, and I thought we had probably our best week of practice on the season, at least on us for defense last week, and I thought it showed from the jump. So I don't think that process and standard changes, and we're going to focus on Boston College, which is a really good football team that's very well coached by a guy that's been doing it at the highest level for a long time. So we've got enough in front of us with that right there.
With Robert's hand situation, how do you adjust to that? So when he can play with it on a club per se, but how do you adjust to it, saying like, what can we do with him here, and what will be?
Yeah.
How will he be restricted?
Yeah, I think all for this next game, I think that's a conversation that we've had, and that we'll have to see where he's at come next week. And hopefully get him ready to go. I think after that, then I think it'll be a little bit more positive for us talking to the trainers as far as the lack of restriction. So that'll be something we're gonna have to monitor, is my point. But I think we'll see where he's at next week. But feel optimistic he's gonna play in this game. We'll take it day by day.
Is the film on BC this season as opposed to when y'all played the ball game much different?
Yeah, I mean, you got same old line coach, did a really good job running the ball. I thought they were really well coached last year, up front. But you've got more of an NFL style approach. Their run game's a little bit more than last year. I mean, they really have almost every run play known to man. We've seen power, we've seen counter, we've seen inside zone, outside zone, insert, wham. We've seen so we've got a good volume of run game. So I think that's a big challenge for us. Like I said, I think they're really well coached up front. I do think they've got some good talent up front. They've got good backs. So from that standpoint, a little bit similar, but probably do a little bit better job in just the overall volume of run game this year, and then more of a pro style passing game. So definitely some similarities. And at the end of the day, you get the same guy touching the ball every single play, which is a challenge, as we know. So, but I think they've done a really good job this year, and I do think they're very well coached. And from what Coach says, it's the same way on defense. So I would imagine in all three phases, really solid football team.
Is there a bad taste in everybody's mouth around that game? Does that play any factor?
I mean, I hope so. I don't know if it plays a factor. No, I mean, I think that the motivation of the game that we have right in front of us should be motivation enough. But I'm sure that some guys will be extra excited for that opportunity. But at the end of the day, we got to focus on us and putting the best version of us on the field. So.
With the home crowd that you guys have had this year, how much does it help you guys on defense?
I think it's
particularly?
tremendous.
Yeah.
I think it's been really cool for me being from here, growing up here, and when I was in high school, middle school, where this program was, it just wasn't even a game you'd go see back in the day, honestly, and when I graduated 2004, so if you think about those years, and to when we got here, to then when we started winning, but it still wasn't where we wanted to now, where, our home field advantage is real. And in particular on defense, they had to burn a timeout on one where it was really loud. I think that affects the quarterback, and I think our guys feed off of that. And so, I can't say it enough. Coming early, showing up, making sure that stadium's full when the game's kicked off, and I think the only last challenge is staying all the way to the end if we're whooping them, because our guys would love to see them. But it's been really awesome to have a real game day atmosphere. I think in this conference, Coach and I were just talking about it. Outside of Clemson right now, when Virginia Tech's usually always pretty good, even if they're average. NC State, when they're good, is good. Louisville's, a really solid atmosphere. You start naming them. Ours has got to be top 4 or 5 in this league easily right now this season. So we got to keep building on that, and I think that's something that's special for, and then when you have, all these kids from Dallas, from Texas, and they come here and they see that, this is top 3 atmosphere in the state for a game. Behind, maybe, 2 other SEC schools who has a better game day atmosphere. There's nobody in the state that has what we have right now. So when you look at that, and you see what we've built, and you see what we're continuing to build, why would you not want to come to school here? I thought Craig James said it best. And when they were doing their huddle deal post game. So. It's been awesome, and it's something that we got to keep building on, and it's something as a coaching staff we really appreciate, and we got to keep tapping into our community to keep making this thing special.
A 2-part question on the linebackers. How's Kobe doing? I think he got banged up, and then when you look at that group, kind of guys that the 3 of them for the most part, you're shorter, kind of slept on in that respect, and then Kilgore, being at a state power, probably overlooked. How much does their chip on their shoulder play into how they play and prepare, and just what have you seen out of that group?
Yeah, I think probably those would be better questions to ask those 2 guys, but I think there are 3 really good linebackers. I think that when you come, that's the one position. It's funny. I had a conversation with a scout. We were talking about Ahmad and Colby yesterday, last week, one of the NFL scouts, and they're similar defensively from a standpoint of what they do and kind of the stress it puts on your backers coverage-wise. And he made the comment, it doesn't matter, our best linebacker's 5'10", this NFL scout. And he was like, it's the most, overlooked, overanalyzed position that you look at a lot of the great NFL linebackers are 5'11", 5'10", like either you can play or you can't. And there was even when Ahmad came to Liberty, there was debate, I remember, amongst our staff, and I was coaching linebackers at the time we recruited him on, the height, because he was like a Sam backer in high school. There was no debate with Colby. Colby was, kind of what we've seen now in high school. Both of them's films were really good, but there's an instinctual part of playing that position that you could have the height, you could have the weight, you could have the speed, and you can't read and key and have those instincts, you're not going to be very good. And I think all 3 of those guys have that. So I think that's, when you look at, great linebackers, a lot of times we can all fall into this trap of, man, this is a big safety that's going to be a super athletic linebacker, but can he play linebacker? Because there's some things you can't coach that, he's going to have intrinsically. So, we want to continue to recruit, that position at a high level, because obviously, to your point, they're not the biggest linebackers in the ACC, but I would argue who has better linebackers than us in this league, and I don't think there's any team that does. So,
what was your perspective like during A.J. Davis's injury? What was kind of the flow of information?
Yeah, so I didn't realize what was going on for the first couple minutes. I didn't. We were upstairs talking, and I didn't know who was down, and then finally we heard who was down, and then didn't know the severity of what was going on initially. Coach Crum and I were talking defensively, and then we kind of figured out, okay, this is serious. And then Coach pretty quickly though hopped on and said, "Hey, he's moving his legs, he's moving his fingers. Should be fine. It's going to be precautionary." And then he was able to tell our team that pretty quickly too, which I think was really big for our guys. Just to hear that, and because I think it was 28-3 at that point, because I think that was right before their 2-minute drive, and then we came down and kicked a field goal. So we played really good, and then all of a sudden there's a 20-minute delay where it's, okay, what's going on? And so, a lot of times as a player, that's really hard to then flip the switch and get back ready to, hey, we got to stop them. They get the ball coming out in the second half. That was probably the most critical drive for us, was that last drive in the first half, because we get, that could be a 10-point swing easily. We get a 3 and out, or maybe it's a 4 and out, but it was a quick. We got the ball back to the offense, and the offense went down and kicked a field goal. When you think about it, if they scored that drive, they scored coming out of the half, we don't get the field goal, that's a 14-point swing. It's 28-3. Now all of a sudden you're looking at 28-17. Completely different game. So I thought how our guys responded in that situation, spoke a lot to them, and I'm sure they were motivated for him, knowing our locker room, and like I said, Coach was able to tell him he's fine, and then obviously he was there on the sideline at the end of the game. So.